Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
Absolutely. And when we would go in to interview them, trying to ask them questions, it was pretty common for them to go, Daddy says I'm not supposed to talk about that, or we don't talk about that game, or we'd have to be very careful in how the questions were asked, because if you ask the kid, well, did so-and-so do this, they may not necessarily think about it in that fashion. They're thinking of it as this was the tickle game, or this was the hide and seek game, or something like that. And you have to kind of get around how they're articulating it.
Right.
One of the other things that when I was doing these investigations, we tried to educate parents on, because we saw it very often in the forensic interviews that we do, is children need to be taught the correct anatomical names for things. And obviously it has to be done at an age appropriate time frame, but we would have kids come in and start making disclosures, but they're talking about, so-and-so touched my cookie. Okay, well, now we have to go through an entire line of questioning on what's a cookie? What's a cookie used for? Are we talking about an Oreo, or are we talking about something else? Yeah. And if the children are raised to not use those kinds of terms, if they can speak intelligently about body parts and what those body parts are by using the correct grammar, it makes it that much easier to then teach them so-and-so shouldn't be touching this part without using those euphemisms. And
right.
And so, as when raising kids, I mean, I get it. I've got 3 kids of my own. Having that birds and bees conversation it's uncomfortable no matter what. Yeah. But the earlier you can have age-appropriate conversations with kids to teach them what's appropriate, what's not, what should be, or shouldn't be happening behind closed doors, and who it's appropriate or not appropriate around, the more likely they are to disclose if something inappropriate happens, even by a trusted adult. And that's going to slow down that perpetration. I have a number of different trainings that are available on doing the investigations. I have some for parents and teachers and students on how to be safe online. And then I know Dr. Fran is here. Nurses United Against Human Trafficking is an outstanding organization that is doing some training in the medical field so that they can train up nurses and doctors to be able to identify these victims when they're coming into hospitals and clinics and things like that. There is also a law enforcement component there, a basic human trafficking 101 kind of course that you can obtain through Nurses United if you're in law enforcement, if you want to learn more about human trafficking, internet crimes against children, how those two co-occur, and get better educated so that you can protect your family and your friends and all the other kids out there that need protection. To reach out or have a couple of the survivors that I've been in contact with reach out and say, hey, this is how my life is going. This is what's going on. Just, for a little bit of closure. But even if it never happens, I know that they're not being abused by that guy anymore. I know that person is out of the picture, and that's what it takes. That's what it's all about. You have that kind of ostrich syndrome where people feel more comfortable putting their head in the sand because they want it to just be something else. The movie Sound of Freedom is great to help start bringing those conversations out, to start bringing that awareness, start getting people who weren't comfortable with the idea to go, oh wow, this really is something. We really do need to look at this. It's just really sad that this couldn't have happened at the same time that in 2018 Backpage was being taken down, because it was an American company that was being used specifically to traffic children and traffic young women in the sex industry around the United States. And as grateful as I am that Tim Ballard put the information out there with Sound of Freedom, and that that the studio that finally, after 5 years of battles, produced it and put it out, was able to do so, I think it's slightly disingenuous, because people are going to be thinking, oh, well, this is a problem in Colombia, this is a problem in Mexico, this is a problem in wherever, this is a problem someplace else, not here, not for me. And what they don't understand is that tens of thousands of kids go missing every month that are being trafficked, and they're being trafficked around American cities. They're being trafficked in Las Vegas, they're being trafficked in Phoenix, they're being trafficked in Philadelphia, in Miami, you name it. Big cities, little towns, doesn't matter. Kids are being trafficked in the US. They're being contacted online. 40 odd percent of them never meet their trafficker, because it's all conducted entirely online. And the ones that do meet their traffickers oftentimes are not caught in some snatch and grab kidnapping. They're lured out of their house by somebody that they know and trust, or think they know and trust.
Right.
And then they're being put out there and they're being trafficked. And it's happening to American kids all over the country. Last week, there were over 1 million cyber tips submitted to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children on children being sexually exploited, abused, and trafficked online. And that's in a 7-day period.
Yeah.
And we know that that's happening in every city across the United States. And so while I think it's great that Sound of Freedom is out there and it's starting to get some press and people are starting to be aware and it's getting out there, I can't wait for Sound of Freedom 2 when they do something with what's happening domestically and how it's happening online, and how American kids are being trafficked by American traffickers, sometimes by their own family members.
Wow.
So that people finally wake up and realize this is not a problem someplace else. This is not a problem that I can ignore or push away or think that happens over there. It's happening here. It's happening in our schools. It's happening in our towns. And until people get smacked in the face with that, it's not going to get what it needs from Congress. It's not going to get what it needs from law enforcement or any of the NGOs that are out there killing it, trying to rescue these kids.